This is really exciting, what the team are doing here at the British Museum, because these fragments of metal being pieced together so delicately, they might not look like much at the moment, but they combine to form one of the most important pieces of Roman armour ever found. But context is everything. This is not a symbol of Rome's supreme power. It's an emblem of one of its greatest defeats.
An ancient annihilation that didn't happen in the deserts of Egypt or on the plains of Greece, but deep in the forests of Germany. It's a story of betrayal, of one man's vehement desire to liberate his people from Roman rule, and the brutal, bloody lengths he would go to achieve it. I'm heading to Germany to investigate how these German barbarians beat one of history's most powerful and well-trained armies. I'll be meeting expert historians along the way.
They're quite brutally reshaping the ethnographic map of Germany,
who will be helping me get to grips with the tactics, arms and armour of these ancient enemies, and digging deeper into new archaeological evidence about this catastrophic Roman defeat.
It's a battle that would permanently scar Roman imperialism and change German history forever.
I'm travelling to Cologne, a city thousands of years old. Today, its magnificent medieval cathedral dominates the landscape, along with the great river that runs through its heart, the Rhine.
At first glance, this might seem a bit of an odd place to start talking about Roman history, but 2,000 years ago, Cologne, or to give it its proper name, Ara Ubiorum, was a Roman town. And this mighty river was the edge of the empire. Over there, civilization, but here, this was Germania, land of the barbarians.
To the Romans, Germania was a dismal land of forests and swamps filled with uncivilized, backwards people. Of course, in reality, Germania and its people were far more complex.
This is Tacitus's Germania. Tacitus was a Roman historian who wrote this in around 98 AD. Now, the Germanic peoples, they didn't leave us any written records, so to get a sense of who they were, how they lived, or at least what the Romans thought of them, well, this is our best bet. It was designed to give a Roman almost everything they would have wanted to know about the Germans, the classic other. It's an ancient ethnography designed to show just how different they were. These barbarians, a horrible word used by Greeks and Romans to denigrate other people as uncivilized and inferior human beings. Now, Tacitus includes physical, albeit rather stereotypical, descriptions. He mentions how the Germans, they have blue eyes, they have reddish hair and large bodies. He also gives us an insight into the world that they lived in, and the climate, at least according to him, wasn't up to much. It was cold, wet, windy, dotted with forests and swamps. But he also talks about their different forms of government, the tens of different tribes that existed, their various customs. And the one thing that they cherished above all else, freedom. But in the late 1st century BC, that highly cherished Germanic freedom, well, it would be put to the ultimate test.
By 12 BC, the Roman Empire under the Emperor Augustus was expanding. The tentacles of the empire spread across modern-day Egypt, France, and the fringes of Germany. Major German cities like Mainz, Bonn, and Cologne all have their roots in this Roman expansion. The Romans and Germans were no strangers to each other. In fact, they'd been exchanging blows for roughly 100 years. Julius Caesar had marched his armies across the Rhine on 2 occasions to briefly campaign in Germania. Meanwhile, Germanic warriors had not only smashed their way down into Italy, but in 16 BC, they annihilated an entire Roman legion during a massive raid across the Rhine.
And so,
With a volatile enemy at their border and a thirst for further expansion, well, the Romans decided that enough was enough. These troublesome barbarians across the Rhine had to be controlled. Thousands of battle-hardened soldiers soon surged into Germania.
Now, of course, the Romans didn't have the luxury of great roads to take them from the safety of civilization west of the Rhine into enemy lands. So instead of immediately marching through dense forests and unknown territory, they kept close to the highways of their day, rivers.
I'm following the course of the Lippe, a tributary of the Rhine that Romans used as a key route into Germania. 2,000 years ago, Romans flooded along this river and set up bases of operations for their summer campaigns against nearby hostile tribes. I'm heading to the site of one of these bases, at Halted am See, or as the Romans knew it, Aliso, where I'm meeting historian Dr. Matthew Nichols.
Matt, first of all, it's cold, it's wet, it's windy. This is almost the picture we have of Germania from Roman writers.
Yeah, writers like Tacitus and Dio love dwelling on how dank and dripping and wet and miserable it is here, and today that's true. For them, the Mediterranean is the ideal climate. Rome is the centre of Italy, Italy's the centre of the world.
So how do the Romans go about conducting these early campaigns into Germania?
So the great Rhine River running north-south is a sort of boundary for the Roman Empire from the 50s BC. So from about 12 BC onwards, Drusus and then a series of other Roman generals conduct raids and campaigns in this area. At first short, sharp, punitive raids. That turns into a campaign of conquest, and they push eastwards to the Weser and the Elbe rivers, trying to take this area as a Roman province.
And how does this fort fit into this? Is this kind of a forward base, something like that?
Yeah, so this fort, maybe it's called Aliso, starts life as a summer camp, a temporary camp with an earthwork boundary that the Romans used to occupy on their way east on a campaigning summer. But then it becomes a permanent fort. It gets a timber palisade around it, permanent buildings on the inside, and it becomes a really important supply base. This is a really important network point in that map.
When we're looking at these early campaigns, their interactions with the locals, is it just military, point of a spear kind of tactics?
Well, the early encounters are short and sharp, and they tend to be pretty violent, and the Romans are very quick to put down resistance, and to do that in an exemplary sort of way, because they don't want raids and resistance. But over time, they try to settle the locals and get them into what they see as the civilized modes of living in towns, paying their tax, acting as farmers. All sorts of different kinds of interaction. They're also not above moving whole peoples around. So they will wipe out tribes that oppose them, or they'll resettle them forcibly to another area. So they're quite brutally reshaping the ethnographic map of Germany.
What started out as a hard military campaign quickly became about cultural colonization, because alongside building forts like this one, the Romans also started creating these civilian settlements called coloniae all across Germania, these centres of Roman trade and culture designed to promote the social and economic benefits that Roman rule offered the local peoples. It was all part of their master plan to transform Germania into their newest province.
German tribes were paying taxes, giving tributes, and even sending their highborn sons to Rome as hostages. One of those tribes was the Cherusci. Although hard to pin down the exact location of the Cherusci heartland, it's likely that it was in a pocket around the modern-day city of Hanover and straddled the river Weser with the dense Teutoburg Forest to the north and west. Amongst the Cherusci was an extraordinary man central to our story, and his name was Arminius. To get a sense of who Arminius was, I've enlisted the help of historian Peter Heather.
Arminius is son of a leading member of one of these 50 Germanic tribes that exists at the start of the first millennium AD. He's the son of Segimir, who is a prince of the Cherusci, but not a king. They don't have kings. So he's a high status individual from a high lineage, and he's caught up in the process of Roman expansion across the Rhine. It's a classic Roman move to take high status children off to Rome. They've been doing it for centuries. The idea is that they will pick up respect for Roman values and probably realize how much of a colossus the Roman Empire is, and that they will go back to their home societies inculcated with Roman values and with a strong sense of respect for the power of Rome, and spread the message that perhaps resistance isn't a good idea. The basic idea that Romans have is that they are the only properly civilized individuals on the planet, and the Roman vision of civilization is that the rational mind controls the irrational body. This is what barbarians are. They're people whose body controls the mind.
In Arminius, the Romans believed that they had the ideal Romanized barbarian, a foreigner who had seen the light of Roman culture. He was the perfect person for one of their commanders to take back into Germania, promoting the benefits of Roman rule. But looks can be deceiving.
In 9 AD, a Roman force crossed the Rhine into Germania, which included Arminius. Leading this army was general and politician Publius Quintilius Varus. Dr. Jo Ball has recently completed a biography of Varus. She will be able to help us get inside the mind of the Roman governor.
Quintilius Varus is a person whose name is familiar to us, but was actually a much more integral part of the early imperial regime than perhaps his later career would signify. He's a great politician, administrator, a military commander, somebody who serves Augustan interests both in Africa, in Syria, as well as in Germany, and somebody who becomes a significant part at the heart of the imperial regime. I think when he's appointed to Germany, it's quite a difficult time for the Roman world. So he's appointed to Germany in AD 7, I think as a safe pair of hands to look after the Rhine frontier and the fledgling province of Germania. Varus has control of these 5 citizen legion troops, 3 of which he takes on the summer campaign with him in AD 9, and 2 of which get left behind on the Rhine.
The legionaries were highly efficient, trained killers, equipped with some of the most iconic arms and armour that we associate with Romans today. But amongst the ranks of these soldiers, there were some carrying a new piece of equipment that would prove revolutionary.
So here it is in its final form, Lorica segmentata, banded or segmented armour. And the detail that survives on this set is incredible. Notice the various sheets of iron where they were tightened together with these metal buckles and leather straps that you can still see today. This is the oldest and most complete set of this type of armour ever discovered. And what's even more amazing is it was found deep in Germania and dates to the 1st decade AD. So when you combine all of that together, you realise that this set of armour, well, it almost certainly belonged to one of Varus's legionaries.
Varus's 3 legions were supposedly the bravest of all armies. At full strength, each legion consisted of just under 5,000 legionaries, which meant Varus had nearly 15,000 of these professional soldiers at his command. A formidable force on the battlefield.
Supporting these legionaries were roughly 5,000 non-Roman allied soldiers, auxiliaries. They could be archers, slingers, cavalrymen supporting infantry, equipped with armour different to the segmentata, chainmail for instance. These auxiliaries came from all across the Roman Empire, but in Varus's army, a lot of them were Germans seeking wealth and glory. Most of these Germans were your everyday rank and file soldiers, but some of them, a few of them, well, they were leaders, like Arminius.
After his education, Arminius is drafted into the Roman army, and he's an officer in Roman auxiliary forces, and he'd served with the Roman armies that were attempting to put down major revolt in the Balkans region of the empire. And then his unit is transferred back to the Rhine frontier. I suspect that Varus viewed him as a kind of special advisor on Cheruscian affairs.
In 9 AD, like every year, spring came and Varus began a new campaign. Alongside Arminius and 20,000 soldiers, they hacked their way further into their newly conquered lands east of the Rhine, Germania Magna. They headed first along the Lippe River, past Roman bastions like the one at Aliso, before turning north and heading inland, deeper into Germania.
His destination was probably somewhere around here, the present-day town of Minden, right next to the Weser River. This was where Varus established his summer camp. This would be their base of operations over the coming months, right at the heart of Cherusci territory.
Germany is still developing into a province at this time. There are only certain parts of the territory that have been incorporated into the Roman world. Now, the Cherusci represent a people who, if you can be certain of anybody being your friends, if you're Romans in Germany, then the Cherusci are the ones that you could rely on. They've been allied with the Romans for at least 2 decades. They've sent hostages to Rome for good behaviour. They're contributing troops to the Roman army on a fairly regular basis. And so it makes sense, if you are going to start campaigning, then basing it in the territory of the Cherusci is a really sensible strategic decision, because it's somewhere where you're going to be safe.
I think Arminius would have been in on Varus's decision to place this summer camp in the Cheruscian territory. His wouldn't have been the only voice. I mean, you've got the professional military commanders would also be in Varus's ear. But Arminius is there, he's involved in the decision making.
Over the summer, Varus and his men remained deep in Germania, and all the while local Germanic chiefs acted peaceful and friendly towards Varus. In Varus's eyes, these Germans were pro-Rome and fully pacified.
So AD 9, I suspect that he's thinking that this is going to be his last summer in Germany. I don't think he has any major military objectives at this point. What I think he's trying to do is he's just trying to make the Roman presence more obvious and to promote it in further reaches of the German territories.
But little did Varus know, there was a snake in the grass. He was being lured into a false sense of safety. But by who? Well, the answer was Arminius. He had left Varus's camp over the summer to go and negotiate with local tribes, supposedly to gain their support for the Roman cause. But in fact, he was playing a very different game.
The Roman campaign was ending, but Arminius's campaign was just getting started. He had spent his summer under the guise of working for Varus, but actually he had been gathering Germanic chiefs and their retinues for rebellion. A new hope was being seeded throughout Germania. Whispers spread that the Roman juggernaut could possibly be beaten.
I think there are two main reasons why Arminius is able to persuade people to join in the revolt. The first one is actually that Roman domination is domination. Rome is a conquest state. It exerts itself by force over people and it exploits them. So actually the experience of Roman power that groups in this region between the Rhine and the Elbe have been feeling only for the last 10, 20 years is an extremely negative one. Apart from the sort of general groundswell of resentment that Roman domination exerts, there's a more specific reason why it's a good moment for Arminius. And that is that what's going on simultaneously is this huge revolt in the Balkans regions of the Roman Empire, the so-called Illyrian revolt. The time is ripe. And I think that would be a pretty easy message to sell to a whole bunch of people who are already resenting the unpleasantness of Roman rule.
By the summer of 9 AD, Arminius had decided that enough was enough. These Romans must be crushed.
We don't exactly know when Arminius decides that he is going to lead a rebellion against Rome. If you think about what's involved in making this rebellion happen, how many groups need to be mobilized, then this can't be a sudden decision towards the end of the summer. So I suspect that he's made up his mind before he comes back to the Rhine frontier.
It wasn't just the Cherusci that Arminius managed to get on board. Several other tribes were keen to revolt against these Roman interlopers. Chieftains mustered their men for war.
But one German leader wasn't so keen. Just as everything seemed to be going so well for Arminius, this chieftain stepped forward, determined to destroy him. And this was personal.
Segestes was a Cherusci nobleman in on the plot, but his daughter had run off with the dashing Arminius. As revenge, he snitched.
"Do not trust Arminius," he cried to Varus. "Bind him up in chains and detain him as soon as possible."
I don't think for a moment that Varus thought that Segestes' information was in any way reliable. He seems to have completely dismissed this. And from Varus' perspective, it's not a bad call to make. I mean, Segestes is somebody, yes, he's a Roman ally, and yes, he's somebody whose loyalty to Rome has been rewarded by citizenship. But Arminius has so much more going for him. So Varus makes the call when he has Arminius on one side and Segestes on the other that he's going to go with the known quantity of Arminius, who he sees on potentially a day-by-day basis.
Varus refused to believe Segestes, a decision that he'd later regret.
In early September, Varus's men were readying themselves for a return to the Rhine. The campaigning season was reaching its end. But just as they were dismantling the camp, a messenger hurried into Varus's headquarters bringing disturbing news. News of an uprising.
Far to the west, many days' march away, a sizable group of Germans had risen in revolt against the Romans. Varus had a choice: head back to the Lippe and the Rhine as planned, or face the threat head-on, marching deeper into Barbaricum. Arminius urged the latter.
Arminius knows exactly what he's doing by the autumn. He knows what forces are assembled. He knows precisely what Varus has got at his disposition as well. And he's able to shape his advice to Varus in a way that's going to create maximum advantage for the tribal alliance that Arminius has managed to put together. So he gives Varus misleading advice as to where the threat lies and is able to push Varus to move his forces in precisely the direction that Arminius wants, where the traps have been laid.
So when the news of the rebellion comes in and Varus has to decide what he's going to do, what action he's going to take against this potential uprising, we know from the sources that Varus doesn't seem to have undertaken any serious military campaigns during his time in Germany. But Roman soldiers, especially experienced and well-trained ones, often revel in having the opportunity to go out and campaign against a provincial enemy, particularly one that they think is going to be relatively easy to defeat. They can go, they can have a bit of a fight, they can get a little bit of glory, bit of booty, and then they can go back with some new stories to tell over the winter.
Now, the soldiers may well have been up for a fight and wanted one, but we must remember that Varus's force included much more than just military men. There would have been hundreds of camp followers, women, children, slaves, traders, not also to mention the pack animals, the wagons and so on. A huge baggage train. And rather than risk dividing his force, Varus had no option but to take all of them with him. And it was as this massive force rumbled into action that Arminius made his next move.
Pretending that he was off to gather his Cherusci warriors to support Varus in the upcoming fight, Arminius left the camp.
So Varus and Arminius parted ways. The Roman army marched on with no idea that betrayal lay ahead of them.
Varus's army headed west, taking everything with them. As far as they were concerned, this was going to be a routine victory for the supreme Roman legionaries. I'm travelling to the Varus Battle Museum at Calcresa and meeting Ingo Petri, who is going to show me exactly what they would have had to carry.
Ingo, it's great to meet you at last.
Great to meet you too.
I've got the extraordinary pleasure of becoming a Roman soldier for the day.
Yes.
And so, if I was one of Varus's legionaries, first and foremost, what equipment would I need?
I will show you, but first we have to get you out of your modern clothes.
Oh, okay, all right. Lead the way. Lead the way. Where do we go?
Follow me.
And as if by magic, here I am. Recruit Tristanus reporting for duty. Ingo, you've got your wagon full of equipment there. I've got my civilian tunic on. Let's go.
Yeah.
The Roman civilian dress is a tunic usually made from wool. This is the first stage in Roman dressing, alongside my cingulum belt and my caligae, the famous Roman hobnailed sandals.
And now
Aha!
you got this thing.
So first of all, so this is Lorica segmentata.
Yeah.
But this is a full example of the one that I've already seen at the British Museum.
Exactly. This is our replica of the original that we have found here.
Oh, of exactly the same armour?
It is.
All right, well, let's see if it fits.
It's exactly the same size, so...
Okay. Here we go. Here it is.
Yeah. Looks very good on you. The buckles are preserved and also some of the leather.
So this is how, this is how they linked all these different plates together. Yeah.
Yeah.
I must ask, for a Roman legionary some 2,000 years ago, would they have been expected to do all of this themselves, or would have they had someone to put on their kit for them?
I think they would have done it with their comrades, which they were sharing a tent. It's very difficult to put on one of those by yourself.
Yeah. And each legionary, they lived in almost a dormitory, didn't they? And those close comrades, they were almost your very closest brothers in arms. They were your best mates in battle.
Exactly.
It feels a nice fit. And also I can still move around quite a lot. Was this modern technology for 9 AD?
It was. This was the most modern thing you could get at this time. Before, legionaries only wore chainmail armor, and this was invented shortly before the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, and it was the newest thing you could get.
So what comes next?
Next, first comes your belt again.
Ah, right, yes.
To show that you are legionary. This is a symbol of legionaries, and only legionaries were allowed to wear it.
Ah, so this was a marker almost that you were a military man.
Exactly.
Now I'm very excited for this.
Of course, your sword.
So this is my main weapon, is it?
It's one of your main weapons. The pilum comes later. Yeah. So you have one belt for your sword, and one belt for your dagger, and you're wearing them a bit crosswise.
Yep.
In literature called cowboy style.
Cowboy style. Okay, what's next?
Next comes.
Aha! Look at this. Yes.
In your head. By me.
The iconic early imperial helmet.
Is it a coil like that?
Yeah. It's not too big. I'm not jangling it around. It's not really impairing my vision at all. So I can see, I can hear when I'm on the march. I've got this rim at the front, I guess, to protect against like slashing swords, I'm presuming. And then this massive rim at the back. Once again, further protection from slashing weapons, it feels like. Was this better than chainmail?
It's protecting a bit better against, for example, pila. It's not as breathing as chainmail armor, and it's not as movable as chainmail armor. And the next thing is, for you it fits perfectly, but normally this one has to be fitted to the body of the wearer, whereas a chainmail more or less hangs down and fits to every size and more body shapes of legionaries.
Almost one size fits all.
Almost,
yes.
almost.
So this kind of feels though the base. There is more to add to me to be a Roman legionary, isn't there?
At least on march, yeah.
Okay.
You want to be on march.
So what is this?
This is a so-called furca.
A furca, okay.
This is the thing with which Roman legionaries carried all their belongings. In here is your cloak.
Cloak, okay.
Here are your personal things in there.
Yeah.
This is your food for 3 days, and you have to carry it over your right shoulder.
Right shoulder. And that was standard, was it right shoulder, not left shoulder?
You could carry it on either shoulder, but today you have to carry the shield on the other end.
Okay. So what are these?
These are your pila, your Roman spears. You have to carry them in the same hand.
Okay.
3 poles in one hand.
One hand, yep.
Maybe even 4.
Oh, what, really?
Because
Sources differ if you carry 2 or 3 pila.
Really? Oh, wow.
Really?
What else do I need?
Of course, your shield.
Okay. And would I always have my shield out ready here, or what was the usual?
Normal on a march through normal territory and you don't expect danger, you would wear it covered in a leather covering on your back.
Okay.
But this would take you more time to get it out. So now you're a Roman legionary on march in an area where danger is expected.
Right.
So if a Germanic warrior jumps out of the forest, you just have to throw away your foca and then you're battle ready.
Right, I must admit, my right shoulder in particular is starting to ache a bit. It's so much equipment to carry for one soldier, particularly all these 3 different poles, and as you say, maybe 4. Now, the name Marius Mules gets thrown about a lot, and Marius, a statesman, very important general of the early 1st century and late 2nd century BC. And why do the legionaries get the nickname Marius's Mules?
Marius saw a problem in the big baggage train of the armies of his time. So every legionary put his stuff onto a wagon or on a mule and didn't carry it himself. And so Marius changed it so that every legionary was carrying all his equipment, his weapons and his food for 3 days, so he could operate for 3 days independent of his baggage train.
If Varus has some 15,000 legionaries, he's got 15,000 Marius mules in his army.
Yeah.
It's going to make quite a lot of noise, isn't it, as well? This is going to be a very long, a very noisy, and very visible army marching through the Germanic forests.
You cannot really walk quietly in this equipment, but the Romans, they want to be heard, they want to be seen, because they are here and they are the rulers.
Well, I'm here, I'm in Germania, I want to be seen. Can I have a little bit of a walk?
Of course you can.
Okay. I mean, this path, it feels quite a nice path, but thinking 2,000 years ago, I'm banging my head against the furca and my pila at the moment. I can't imagine what it'd be like trying to get past these obstacles, whether it be like the small trees or branches, bushes and so on. That is also a really difficult task for a Roman legionary. If someone falls over, does the whole column have to stop?
Yeah, probably, especially on this very narrow path. One legionary that just gets stuck somewhere or several tumbled over him would stop the whole column, and it would probably take a long time to get it going again.
If there was word of an attack, if I saw warriors running down towards us now, how easy would it be for me to, let's say, get rid of the furca, get my sword out, be ready for battle?
It would take you some seconds. That means if you see the barbarians very late, it's maybe too late for you.
Yes.
But otherwise, you just have to throw off your foca, and you take your pilum, for example, or your sword. The only problem is when you have thrown your foca into the swamp, you don't have to eat for 3 days. So probably after the first few attacks of Germanic warriors, the legionaries didn't have food anymore.
All right, well, come on, let's go and have a bit more of a walk. Oh, it's heavy stuff. It's the right shoulder that's killing me.
Varus and his men headed deeper and deeper into Germania, the columns strung out for several miles before contracting as they set up camp for the night. The whole army was confident this German uprising would soon be crushed, and they could then return to civilization.
The march continued the next day, and by the early afternoon, they reached the Teutoburg Forest, this dense woodland. Here, the path was narrow. Taller trees and uneven terrain dominated the landscape. The army moved deeper into the forest, still unaware of the imminent danger, of eyes looking at them from amongst the trees. And then, all hell broke loose.
In the next episode, horror, mayhem and murder will explode across the forest. Thousands will be shocked and hit by the brutal realization that there was a traitor in their midst.